If you could put 50 pieces of evidence in your file versus one, that is significant rewiring of your brain. That is beginning to fire the proper neuromodulators rather than the ones that are not helpful. That is how you begin to build these different neuropathways and start to quiet the other one. Hey, friend, welcome back to the Art of Managing Your Brain podcast. I'm Dr. Charlie Hornes. Today, we're unpacking one of the most frustrating and perplexing challenges faced by high-achieving women. It's what I call the confidence paradox. So have you ever hit a major milestone? Maybe you got a promotion, landed a big client, or achieved a long-term goal, only to feel like a complete fraud. Yeah, maybe you've chalked it up to luck or timing, convinced that any moment somebody would figure out you're not as competent as they thought. This phenomenon is called imposter syndrome. Yes, and it is a cruel twist where success doesn't bring the confidence we expect. Instead, it magnifies our self-doubt. So today we're going to dive into the neuroscience behind imposter syndrome, why your brain keeps reinforcing doubt even when you succeed. We're going to dive into how societal expectations for women create a toxic cycle of achievement without validation. We're going to unpack actionable tools to disrupt the cycle, to help you learn to rewire your brain and build true and lasting confidence. You do this through building evidence. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why success can sometimes feel like a lie. And most importantly, what you can do to rewrite that narrative for good. Are you ready to learn more about the confidence paradox? Then let's go.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornes, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
All right, but before we get started, I have a quick favor to ask. If you've been finding value in this podcast, would you take a moment to leave us a review and a rating? And please don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you're on our YouTube channel. Your reviews and your feedback fuel me to keep creating these episodes, and it also helps others discover the show. So if you know anyone who might also benefit from today's episode, whether they're struggling with self-doubt or just need a confidence boost, please share this with them. Sometimes a simple share can make all of the difference. And finally, have you taken my free thought saboteur quiz yet? This quiz is designed to pinpoint the thought patterns that are holding you back, getting in the way of your success, and it's going to give you an interactive guide with actionable steps to start changing this today. You will discover if it's self-doubt, overthinking, approval-seeking, perfectionism, or avoidance that are the thought patterns that are absolutely sabotaging your success. And then you're going to get a tailored interactive guide that's going to walk you through all kinds of ways that you can start to address the issues. So grab the link. It's in the show notes, or just go to charliehornescoaching.com/quiz and grab your results now. It's all free. All right. So I would like to unpack this thing that I call the confidence paradox. It's basically success without validation. It's success without feeling like you're successful. So let's start there. You work hard, you achieve success, and you expect to feel confident. You expect to begin to feel better about yourself just by achievement alone. But instead, you're full of more doubt. Why is this happening? This comes from a brain process called negative filtering. Your mind is wired to notice failures and dismiss successes. This is why people are so quick to criticize one another. And this is why people don't feel bad about it, because they're supposed to. Their survival mechanism wants them always on the lookout for the weak link that is going to endanger everybody. The one person that makes a mistake that is going to put your child in jeopardy. That is what your brain is supposed to do from the get-go. This was the survival mechanism of our ancestors. Focusing on threats kept them alive. That is how the brain is wired. But in today's world, it backfires. This is upside down. We do not live in those times anymore, but no one has told our brains that. So it backfires. It keeps us stuck in cycles of self-doubt. So what's really happening in your brain? Let's do some very simple, we'll just run down a quick list of what's happening so that you understand this better. You need to know why. Why is this stuff happening? Because once you understand it's stuff in your brain, it happens to most people and it's normal, you can stop feeling like something's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. Here's what's wrong. The first one is the negativity bias. So this is your brain's survival instinct at work. We talk about the amygdala a lot. We talk about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, our survival mechanism and our thinking mechanism. And that's oversimplified. And our brain is indeed one entire system that works together. So you can't really take these pieces out without the other ones working in tandem. But it's just simpler to say, this is your survival mechanism. This is your thinking mechanism. And one always overrides the other. And it's usually your survival mechanism in control. So that's the amygdala. And it plays an extremely important role. It's scanning for danger at all times. And it's prioritizing negative stimuli over positive ones. Evolutionarily, this made sense. Being hyper aware of potential threats increases our ancestors' chances for survival. In today's achievement-driven world, not survival-driven world, this bias magnifies perceived shortcomings and minimizes wins. The next piece is the prefrontal cortex dilemma. So again, your thinking brain, your evolved brain, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, and self-evaluation, tends to overanalyze successes. Instead of internalizing achievement, it starts generating what if scenarios. What if they expect more from me? What if I can't repeat this success? What if this was a one-off? What if this was just luck? What if I fail again? This overactivity reinforces this pattern of self-doubt rather than celebration of your achievements. All right, the next piece is the reward system misfire. Now, I talked about this in a previous episode, but basically your brain's reward system is driven by dopamine and it's designed to reinforce behaviors that feel good because of that motivational triad that is the sort of crux functioning of our brain, our survival mechanism. It seeks pleasure, which means safety, right? Food, water, shelter. Those feel good. That means safety. It wants to avoid things that feel terrible because typically things that feel terrible equate to death, falling off a cliff, being hungry, all of these things, going down that pathway and running into the elephant that wants to stomp on your head and don't go that way again, okay? Because angry elephants and hippopotamuses are in that direction. So feel bad equals dead. And then it wants to expend the least amount of energy as possible so that it can run away from the angry hippopotamuses anytime they rear their ugly heads. That is what your survival brain is all about. The three pieces of a motivational triad. So you have a reward system that is driven by dopamine, and it's the dopamine that is the connector between these neurons that create the pathways to tell you that's safe, that feels good, that feels terrible, that's danger. And it's designed to reinforce behaviors that feel good. But here's the catch. If you've been internalized socially or your personal beliefs are around the belief system that you're not enough, that you're not good enough, your brain is going to downplay the dopamine responses to your success. Instead of experiencing that surge of pride or confidence, you feel a fleeting sense of relief, like dodging a bullet rather than hitting a target, because your reward system is upside down. It reinforces good behavior, but it also reinforces negative behavior. And if you are internalized socially and living in socialized patriarchy and all of the ways the world tells us how we should be as women, you're going to end up feeling not enough. And then your brain downplays all of the successes around you because it needs you to do better, right? And that keeps you safe. All right, next is the cortisol confidence clash. Ha! Can you tell I love alliteration? I do. So success often comes with increased visibility and pressure, triggering your stress response system. Anytime you are more in the eye or you're feeling more pressure, your stress response can be triggered, which elevates the cortisol levels that can suppress that release of serotonin. It's the same idea. The confidence chemical leaving you feeling anxious or on edge, even in moments of triumph. So often, the reason you don't feel successful is because your feelings of successfulness are repressed by your brain. It's actually normal. It just doesn't feel normal to you. The last thing is what I call the achievement anomaly. Every time you succeed, your brain raises the bar. Instead of thinking, I've proven myself, I've arrived, I've gotten there, I've succeeded, yay, I'm finally, earning back all of the things that I suffered through, undergrad and paying off loans and whatever. Instead of saying, I've arrived, instead of saying, I've made it, I've proven myself, instead you think, now the stakes are even higher. I can't mess up next time. There's way too much pressure on me now. What if this was just lucky? See, this creates a vicious cycle where success doesn't feel like validation. It feels like more pressure. And that, my friend, makes zero sense. But it explains a lot. All right, so let's go back over this little piece of the science part of this confidence paradox. So the first thing is about the negativity filtering being explained, why we're constantly looking for the negative and not the positive, and that negativity bias and its survival origins, why it exists, what its purpose is, and how it's not about you. It is your survival mechanism. It is trying to be your friend, protect you, and keep you safe. And lastly, how the prefrontal cortex, the reward system, and the levels of cortisol that should not be running through your body and brain create this added pressure instead of validation. And that is this vicious cycle that we have to break out of. Get in the plane, get up, let's see the system for what it is, and let's get out of the cycle. Look, if you feel like success is a moving target, you're not alone. Your brain is literally wired to focus on gaps, not gains. But here is the good news. We can retrain your brain to celebrate successes and build confidence. All right, now let's talk about why women are especially vulnerable to this confidence paradox. We go back to breaking down society, social expectations, socialization. So society, all the things around us, regardless of, how progressive of a home we may have been raised in, especially as women, supportive and told we could go out and do anything and everything. Society conditions women to seek external validation from a very young age. Women are praised for being what? I said this, last week? Nice, humble, hardworking, caregivers, sacrificial servants to a fault. And rarely are women praised for being bold, for being confident, for being self-assured, for knowing what they want and getting it. This shapes the way our brains process success and self-worth. Early experiences with external validation create neural pathways that associate worth with approval. So the level of approval is in direct proportion to your level of how you feel about self-worth. Do you see that? It is in direct proportion, one to the other. The level of approval you receive by society, your circle, your workspace, your family, your whatever. The more approval, the more self-worth you feel. Your brain craves external affirmation to feel confident, making self-trust harder to develop. That is a validation trap, and it's not real. We also have the humility bias. Women are often taught to downplay their achievements to avoid appearing arrogant. How many times are women criticized for this type of disposition where they're called arrogant, they're called conceited, they're told not to think so highly of themselves, to be so self-assured? Women are downplayed and taught to downplay their own achievements. And this creates cognitive dissonance where your reality no longer matches what's around you. You know you've succeeded, but you feel you must minimize it, which feeds the imposter syndrome. And those things do not make sense. You've succeeded, but you must minimize it. That will spin your brain out faster than anything else. Then we have what I call the double bind. So often, as I've said before, many of us are moving in male-dominated spaces, but every space has been immersed in socialized patriarchy. So truly, every space has a level of being male-dominated just because of the systemic biases that surround us. So we women face the double bind. Be confident, but not too confident, right? Be assertive, but not too assertive. Be sexy, but not too slutty, but not too prudish. I mean, the social expectations for women are truly impossible. And there is no way to meet any of those expectations. You're either too something or not enough of another. And this constant balancing act, most all women have been tightrope walking their entire lives. Most don't even know they're doing it. You're constantly getting it wrong. You're constantly being told in 1,000 different cues, 1,000,000,000 times a day, how you're not good enough, you're not hitting the marks, and you are not living up to societal expectations that are mainly around gender. The constant balancing act erodes your ability to feel secure in your success. Recognizing these patterns is the first step towards disrupting them. Yes, another week where I call you out to be a disruptor. I've got a place now where I can put everybody's resources in one storefront. What's really cool is when you use the what we call affiliate links, and I'm now becoming an affiliate for a whole bunch of different things. It's all on my website at charliehornesscoaching.com, and it's on the bonus resources page. What happens is when you purchase something off of that, a portion of it goes back to the show. And so what you're doing basically when you buy from there is you're supporting the show at no additional cost to you, which is kind of like the coolest thing ever. It's going to help us continue to create content for you and bring on incredible guests that are, they blow my mind. So I'm hoping they will blow your mind too, whether it's metaphysics and psychology and theology or high fantasy romance. You're going to find your next favorite read right there. Let's go. All right, now let's talk about how to rewire your brain for more lasting and authentic confidence. Here's the empowering part. Confidence isn't something you either have or don't. We're convinced of this. Oh, that person's such a confident person and I'm not a confident person. I have low confidence. Again, it's all bullshit society's told you. Confidence is not something you either have or don't. It is a skill and you can build it. Anybody can create a skill within them of true confidence. But you rewire your brain for confidence. To do that, we need to disrupt the patterns of self-doubt and strengthen those neural pathways that recognize and celebrate success. And you have to do this by changing the way you think, because if you're constantly allowing thoughts to put you in survival mechanism overload, then you are overloading your system with negative neurotransmitters that are hindering these social transmitters, the ones that tell you that you feel good, you should feel proud of yourself and celebrate these successes and recognize that you are achieving things. So here's 3 steps on how to get started. The first one is reframe your success. So through thought work, replace, for example, I just got lucky with, I created this result through my skills, decision, and effort. You can use that step up thought process. Instead of thinking the negative or something that has a negative connotation about yourself, I just got lucky. You are socialized not to praise yourself. You've been told that's too whatever, whatever. And so you say, oh no, I just got lucky, right? But you need to be able to own your successes, your achievements, truly for yourself. Who cares what people think? Because you're not telling them, you're talking to yourself. Praise yourself for your achievement. You cannot convince your brain of something it does not believe. It believes you got lucky. Why? Negativity bias, right? Negativity filtering. It doesn't believe that you earned this, that you created it. It's a result through your own skills, decision, and effort, right? Because A, it goes against all socialization, and B, it goes against survival instincts because resting on our laurels gets us eaten. So we're constantly pushing to be better, constantly. So you have to incrementally change your thoughts. Your thoughts have to be true, as in proven in a court of law, and they have to be believable by your brain. Your brain has to believe the thing that you're trying to think. If it doesn't buy it, it's not going to think it, and you're not going to reap the feeling of it, create the action from the feeling, and get the result you want. So we have to go back and incrementally change our thoughts. So what is a true and believable thought that you can begin to replace I got lucky with? Authentically believing that you created the result because of your skills, decision, and effort. And you do not need any external validation for that. All right, here's a neuroscience pro tip. Speak this refrain out loud, whatever it is that you choose. If you choose a neutral one that is just like, a 1% bump towards kindness to yourself, positivity, positive thinking, that is going to kick the negative bias out the door and allow you to begin to move towards celebration of your achievements and success. So whatever that thought is that's true and believable, that you can comfortably say to reframe the negativity, speak this refrain out loud. Your brain processes verbal affirmations more deeply than internal thoughts. So there is power in saying things out loud. Maybe that's why we all love podcasts. I know I do. All right, next, there's something you can do called creating a confidence bank. You just simply write down 3 specific wins every day, big or small, doesn't matter. Some days getting out of bed for me is a win. Seriously. I have to take my kids to school every morning, and I am not a morning person. I'm a night owl. I'm often recording at night. My kids are asleep. I'm working at night. I love it. I always have been. So getting my kids to school relatively on time is a huge win some days for me because I've been up way too late the night before obsessing over all of my workaholism because I'm a high achiever. But I get them there and it's a win, right? So for example, maybe you have a win that you feel like you led a meeting today with some clarity. You felt really solid. You knew what you were talking about. You hit your bullet points. You didn't get, shaken by so-and-so's question or comment. Or maybe you feel like you solved a problem quickly, right? Maybe you had an answer quickly. You solved it quickly. I mean, we all solve problems, but to be able to like reach out and catch that answer and solve the problem, that feels really good. We don't always give ourselves credit for that. Over time, this creates a tangible record of your capabilities, training your brain to focus on the gains rather than the gaps, right? Back to the gains rather than the gaps, because your brain loves gaps rather than gains. That is why it's so important to build your evidence folder of wins so that you begin to thicken it. It gets stacked up. You're sitting on it. It's totally like bolstering your life. And you can look at this giant folder that you have stuffed full of evidence that says you're not a piece of crap, that you are worthy, that you are powerful, that you do stuff, that you achieve and are successful. And it's okay to feel that. It's okay to feel some confidence because of your wins, but it takes discipline because your brain is wired to do the exact opposite at every time. All right. Then we can talk about what I would identify as a confidence ladder. So we break down these big goals that we want to achieve into smaller, manageable steps. Each step is an opportunity to build trust in yourself. So instead of thinking, I have to nail this thing, this presentation, this meeting, break it down into these smaller tasks that you can achieve and visually see the achievement because you're doing it in steps. You're creating a ladder to the thing. Prepare the outline. Smaller task. Practice with a friend. Create the template for the slide deck, right? Don't finish the whole thing. Praise yourself. You created the template for the first slide, right? This changes how you look at success because you can turn one outcome, one result into 50 because you've given yourself little bite-sized steps. And every time you achieve one towards the main outcome, you can celebrate it. It's not about tooting your own horn. This is how you build evidence. And if you could put 50 pieces of evidence in your file versus one, that is significant rewiring of your brain. That is beginning to fire the proper neuromodulators rather than the ones that are not helpful. That is how you begin to build these different neuropathways and start to quiet the other one. All right, so let's just run through that again. These tools to rewire your brain for better confidence. The first one is reframing success. Instead of having a negative comment, throwing something off, sloughing it off, saying, not owning it. Own it. Own it. Reframe the success. And own it in a way that's true and believable that your brain will buy. So if you have to incrementally say something nicer to yourself by 1%, 5%, 10%, do that. As long as your brain goes, yeah, okay, I can go with that. The second one would be building that confidence bank. So that is all of your little wins during the day. I acknowledge them, identify them, write them down. Again, more evidence for your evidence file. And use that confidence ladder, right? So break stuff down into small pieces. And then every time you achieve it, it's a win. All right, here is a second action strategy for dealing with the confidence paradox. And this one I call the past me, present me, future me exercise. So this is about not living in your past self, not letting your past self identify who you are and be the entire narrative and inner dialogue of your life's story. Changing it is the work of the present you so that you can begin to lay the foundation of meeting the future you've always wanted to be. So think of a challenge you've overcome in the past that felt impossible at the time. Write down how you got through it. And if you can remember, what skills did you use? Next, connect it to your present. by asking, how can these same skills help me in my current challenge? So instead of looking at our past self and all the negativity, what you can do is think about ways that you have overcome challenges in the past that may have felt impossible at the time, and then identify some of the skills that you use that you can own that helped you achieve that challenge. Then you connect that to your present day by asking, how can these same skills that I have proven, that I have evidence that I can do, help me in the current challenge? And then you need to visualize the future self you've always wanted to be, and be specific in this challenge that you're dealing with. Visualize that future self succeeding and ask yourself, what will my future self thank me for doing today? What can I do today to hand off the life that I want for my future self tomorrow? You can let go of the negative stories and the negative filtering and the negative bias of your past. It does not have to define you today. So what can you instead do today that your future self will thank you for doing tomorrow? This is going to build self-trust by connecting the past wins, not the past failures, to the future possibilities. And then when you achieve tomorrow that you plan for today, in spite of yesterday's perceived failing, that is yet one more bit of confidence that goes in that file. You can do this every day. All right, we also have something you can call the success spiral. It's a tracker concept. So in the evening, you can write down one success, big or small, and what you did personally to achieve it. Was there a skill, an action? Did you make a call that you felt good about? Did you not eat the thing you wanted to eat? I mean, did you take 5-minute walk? There's a success every day. And if you're doing the past, present, future self practice, every day you make a choice that is good for your future self tomorrow is a win that you can track. Now, it's so good to write it down, because then you kind of code it better. You identify it better, just like the concept of saying things out loud really helps you ingrain them. So, thoughts are not helpful, but when you're intentional about writing, when you're intentional about speaking out loud, it makes a difference. So identify the success every day, big or small, and then name some exact skill or action that you used to achieve it. Then at the end of each week, you review your list and identify patterns in your strengths. And this will slowly spiral up towards additional confidence. Confidence isn't about perfection. It's about recognizing and owning what you're capable of. All right, let's get into a little bit of thought work here and talk about how the thoughts that you're having in your brain, which are not real, by the way, are fueling this confidence paradox. So here are 3 common thought patterns and how to reframe them. If they really knew me, they'd see I don't belong here, or they'd see I'm not whatever, fill in the blank of what your brain is telling you. One way to reframe that might be, my results speak for themselves. I belong here. I earned it. Do you have a certification that qualifies you for the job? Do you have a diploma? Do you have a postgraduate degree? Do you have specific training that has equipped you and certified you, or whatever, fill in the blank, to be there, to do the job? Then you belong there because you earned it. Your results of getting the things you needed to get to do the job you're there to do speak for themselves. Another common thought pattern is, what if I fail? Lots of what if scenarios. And we're going to talk about that in a week or two. But for example, what if I fail? Well, what if you read the future? Do you know you're going to fail? Especially when you succeeded a lot already in your life. So reframe that. Failure is part of the process. It's like how scientists tell us that we learn when we're sleeping. We grow in sleep and rest. Rest is so important. So much of improvement happens when we're not doing the improvement in the moment, but after we've done some work towards it. Failure's the same way. Failure is not success, just like sleep is not activity. It's an opportunity for growth. Failure is an opportunity to learn. Failure is an opportunity to practice a reasonable level of humility, as in saying, it's not the end of the world if I don't do this perfect, or if I blow it the first time. It's okay. You can make mistakes. So instead of what if I fail, it's what can I learn? What can I fail today to grow and learn? Let's go fail something, right? I mean, not mess stuff up, but go and learn. Go out there and mess it up. That's the only way you're going to learn. And remember, people love criticizing. Your survival mechanism wants to criticize. So they're going to criticize you anyway. You might as well learn from failure, because every mistake that you make is one more step towards achievement. So spend 5 minutes a day reflecting on a recent success. And then ask yourself, what skills, decisions, actions contributed to this success? Concrete things that you can point to about yourself. And then what does it say about your ability, your level of achievement? And then how can you carry that confidence into the next challenge? How can you hand that off to your future self tomorrow? Right? Confidence is a skill. You can learn it. Confidence isn't about perfection. It's about recognizing and owning what you're capable of. All right. So the confidence paradox, this was just a pretty quick overview and some actionable steps you can take. But the confidence paradox isn't a sign that you're a fraud or a failure. It's a sign that your brain needs a reset. It needs to rest, to grow, instead of continuously beating yourself up. That negative narration and inner dialogue that's just constantly on loop in your head that is made up. Get rid of those stories that you've been telling yourself your whole life. This week, I challenge you to start your confidence bank. Start planning to meet your future self every day and hand these things off. Write down the wins, no matter how small. Write down the skills that you were able to contribute to achieve, and watch how these daily disciplines shift your focus and build your belief in yourself. It works. It really does, but you have to work it. All right, friends, if today's episode resonated, share this with somebody who might need these tools. And don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and engage. And also, if you haven't taken my free quiz yet to discover what thought pattern is sabotaging your successes, then run over to charliehornetscoaching.com/quiz and discover what is holding you back. So thanks again for listening. And remember, confidence isn't a feeling you wait for. It's a muscle that you build, and you build it every single day. All right. I'll see you next week.